Okay. Should I get us started here?
Yes.
I'm astounded at how many people are piling into this little Zoom room here. Great to see everybody. So, hey, everybody. My name's Adam Jackson. I'm a co-founder of Braintrust, CEO of a company called Freelance Labs, which is one of the Braintrust core teams. For anyone new to us, Braintrust is a decentralized talent network that connects technical talent, designers, product managers, developers with clients that need their services, usually either for contract or full time. And so uh, AI is obviously a very hot topic. This is our very first session of building your career in tech and machine learning and AI. This is a Braintrust Fireside Chat series where we learn from prominent people in the industry. And today's event will speak with our first guest, Aarthi Srinivasan, who was the chief product officer at Premier.ai. She also has leadership experience at startups, large tech companies such as Amazon and Target. Aarthi, I could read your extensive resume, but I think people would rather hear it from you. So let me hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining so late at different time zones. I am astounded as well with great organization with Elena and team, as well as with your efforts, Adam. So I wanted to, given this is a career journey, I wanted to start off with a personal story of mine so that you understand what has shaped me and how we've come about to be where I am. And then I can get into all your AI questions as well. So, growing up, I was in India, and my parents lived in the Middle East when I stayed in India with my siblings. And it's an alien concept if I think about it today with my children as well, with my daughter as well. And this experience introduced me to two types of fears in my life. In Hebrew, it's called pachad, the imagined fears, and the ira, like the learned fears, which your family teaches you, like don't touch fire or stay away from snakes. Initially, I had this imagined fear of a public speaking or being confident in front of team meetings and sitting at the back and so on. It was about judgment of others and how I look, how I come across, how I pronounce things, all these imagined fears. And overcoming these required a lot of self-awareness and acceptance and coaching. So I would first like to thank my coaches, Senya Maiman, who wrote the Profit from the Positive book, as well as Dan Foote from Reboot, who played a significant role in my journey to be where I am and embrace my true core energy. And whatever you take from this in terms of technicalities, because I think that you can learn, but getting that inner core energy and confidence in yourself, and that's the tough part of the journey. Once you have that, you can get the other part in terms of learning and having that constant deep curiosity, which is what led me to be a product and operations executive today. My focus, because of this learning and curiosity, and like as Jane Fonda once said, to do life right, you have to continue growing every day. In my case, it's learning every day, learning something new from people who work for me, from younger people, older people, and that's the mantra I follow. And that has led me to a place where I could be a product and operations executive. And my focus is on taking that learning in technology research into practical solutions for customers. It encompasses like product leadership or thought leadership. So doing things like this enables me to learn more, to answer your questions, to invoke that thought leadership by giving. I'm also getting in this process, and I'm very thankful for that. And of course, the third pillar in my career has been the operational scaling and execution. We can talk all we want, but if you don't show the numbers and value to the customers, you're not going to be valued. So that's kind of how I have formed my career around these three pillars of product leadership, thought leadership, and operational scaling. So
That, that's very cool. I love how you frame that up with the three pillars. Could you and I'm very curious myself. I'm sure the huge audience here is too. Like, can you give us like a quick kind of through line of your career, like from company to company, like what brought you into one, what brought you into the next one, what were like some highlights, like just sort of the like career through line here. I think would be really interesting.
So I think if you look at my career, it's not a straightforward path. If I do McKinsey, I get here. If I do here, I get here. I am a person who takes risks and take chances. And for example, I will show you this collection medallion, which I received as I'm in transition at Primer, and it says, "We will never back down, never have, and never will." So essentially, this is one of my teammates who gave this to me with a heartwarming letter about how we work together and how we accomplish something. So through my career, the first thing is really going with an open mindset to understand what different folks are doing, understand different stakeholders' interests and goals, and then bring in my own expertise to scale it or to have these roles. And most of my transitions have happened in one of two ways, and I've never burned. Luckily, I've been fortunate to never burn any bridges. And usually it happens where a friend reaches out saying like, "Hey, I have this big role," or, "I think you'd be perfect for it. Why don't you jump on?" Or going through networks like yours, where I've always maintained great connections with recruiters and as who know me more than, like my manager would, right? Because they are the people who understand what is my core interest and what is the real thing that is there. And through the process of transition, I've always sought a learning journey and challenges and opportunities. So if something comes through where I'm like right now, I'm exploring the LLM world and how do I get in out of my comfort zone, and that's been kind of the scope. And usually it's been accompanied with scope increases or a new sector or new technology and connecting research to reality. That's how it's happened, but it's always been with that curious mindset. It's not been like, "Oh, I'm getting bigger, better pay there, so I'm going to drop what I'm doing." And usually it's been like at the time where I've finished off the stuff I've started and it's a good place, and somebody else is handling the day-to-day maintenance of it, and so I can do something 0 to 1 and scale it in another place.
Got it. Got it. Well, it's a good transition here. So what we did, we polled our Braintrust community to get some questions from them that all of us are interested to hear your answers on. And so we'll start a little kind of basic, and then kind of get a little more sophisticated here. So first one is, what is AI? What's the difference between machine learning and AI, or is that just a new name? How do you think about the difference between those two?
So um, many people use it interchangeably actually right now, and I would disagree with that. So, in summary, I would say AI is a broader field that encompasses the development of like your intelligent system. So, think a robot which can walk, or an autonomous car which can drive and make all those decisions with eyesight, with reasoning, with learning, and acts like a human, mimics a human behavior. And ML is a specific approach within AI which utilizes algorithms, supervised learning, data, or unsupervised learning too, to enable computers to learn and make predictions or decisions. So it's a narrower method within the broader umbrella of AI. And within ML, you have deep learning, which, the whole foundational models, neural networks. That's the third piece of how to solve a puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, basically just prediction machines that are just getting better and better,
Yeah,
right? And the
yeah,
more data
exactly.
they have, and the more human reinforcement learning, in some cases, the more accurate they seem, or the
Exactly,
more
absolutely.
confidently wrong they are, as in ChatGPT's case.
Yeah.
So how's your personal journey in machine learning and AI shaped your understanding of its potential impact on technology and society more broadly? Part one. Part two, how can individuals navigate ethical considerations in this field?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was a question from Martin on the forum, and I've answered it in more detail there. So if you want to get that detailed answer, you should go there. So let me just summarize it here. 5 years ago, when I was working on, like, let's say, target personalization or something, it was all about automation and improving the task efficiency, doing things better, faster, and very narrow focus. The landscape has changed. You're literally with LLMs and foundational models, you're taking how your brain works with billions of seconds of synaptic connections and putting that kind of training in the LLM model. And now it can almost act like a toddler who's learned things or a human who's learned things without reasoning. Of course, the memory is unparalleled to us human, but it's essentially a mind meld of all our data and combining neuroscience and technology. You talked a little bit about reinforcement learning or back propagation. Those are techniques which is research, which it's now come into production because of ChatGPT and Claude and all that. Now, the more advanced field of this is Elon's company, which is like Neuralink, where you can actually have a brain computer interface and have like a chip installed in the human and use that to do, hopefully to do things like control dementia or work with Parkinson's and so on, right? So it's truly remarkable, almost philosophical for me, because I believe in this concept of universal mind where you and I are the same and are seeking the same thing beyond just how we look and what we do. The AI is doing that. It's collecting data from all of us all over the world and interpreting that in its hopefully diverse and unbiased training process. And that leads to this question of yours with this mind meld, which is diverse. How is it ethical? How do we make sure that only one voice, which has more money or more power or more data, is heard? And that's why I think there are people are worried about it, and that's why even entrepreneurs and the government are proactively approaching these problems. So Sam Altman of OpenAI wrote a letter about this, and it's really well explained how he's thinking through this. And the EU has assessment list for trustworthy AI, and then the America has the Bill of Rights from AI, and it's published right now. But these are giving you broader scope. We have to, as a technologist, we have to take it more in depth and do things like, where is your data privacy coming from? Where is your data coming from? And so I classify it into three pillars: the data, the model trustworthiness, and then the deployment trustworthiness. At the time of deployment, who's hacking you, what's happening. And there are startups in every field right now. I've written a blog about that, but there are startups in every field which are targeting each of these privacies and securities, including ensuring your AI models. So the sourcing of data, there's like in Reddit right now, there is a protest going on recently where how are you going to compensate the people who are giving data, and should you charge for it, and so on, right? The open source data, the sourcing of it, where is it being scraped is very important, and who sees it. Like if I see something like a beheading of a journalist, or if I see something and I'm a labeler, let's say I'm a labeler and I'm seeing this as my employment place, how will I be protected psychologically? All these are questions that you need to answer. And then the model which you alluded to, Adam, which was the hallucination or giving the wrong answer confidently, that is more, yes, a known problem, and we can tackle that. But with the prompt engineering, which is a new field, which is, like as Andrei Karpathy said, English is the most sought after developer language right now. It's not Java or C++. They want people who can do the prompt engineering. So anyway, so I think there's a lot of efforts which are starting, and Silicon Valley technologists as well as global technologists are working with governments proactively, and I would even say setting the stage for governments to collaborate with us and get this to a next level of data and trust, of unbiased models, as well as deployment with trustworthiness.
Yeah, what's interesting. I'll throw in this little aside is on the topic of AI ethics. There's a broad spectrum here of ethics, right? And it's such kind of a subjective term. But it was interesting. We were actually at Braintrust. Our core team, Freelance Labs, we're interviewing for a prompt engineer / business process automation person, just to make our existing folks more productive. And one of the people who applied said, I only practice ethical AI. And I asked her, like, what does that mean to you? I'm not like I haven't really heard
Yeah,
that term.
that's interesting.
And she said any AI that will replace a human role is unethical, and I won't work on it.
Wow,
And
interesting.
so, that's interesting. Like, it's certainly, you can understand where she's coming from in
Mm-hmm.
today's context. But if you think about, like, that would mean you're just anti-tech, right? Like, you wouldn't build a car because it puts horseshoe makers out of business, right? Or
Yeah,
you wouldn't work on word processing software because typewriter businesses would be affected, right? And it's so, it's an interesting argument there, but I respected her position around not wanting to contribute to, an already kind of tough labor market.
got
Um,
it.
which is
Interesting.
like kind of a good segue actually into our next question here for you, Aarthi, is what do you think are the future market prospects for AI careers, and are there any specific fields you expect more growth in? And this is from Cristiano Arantes on our Braintrust Professional Network.
Right. So I think it's a good question, and I think it's something we need to think about. It's not a black or white where AI is going to replace your job because it can write better, but it will disrupt task automation. It will disrupt coding. Your example of like horses to cars or typewriters to computers, like that is going to happen, and you will do things faster. And does that mean you need fewer people or fewer hours of work or increased productivity? So I just think it's we all still have jobs, even though our grandparents had jobs when horses went to cars, and so there is always going to be a different kind of skill set. But I think broadly, it does, especially with LLMs, it disrupts coding because it allows you to still be a coder, but know what you're asking for and do it much faster and better. Automating anything, those things, we'll welcome the back office automation, mundane documentation. So those things would be there. You'd still need a human in the loop to validate and verify these things. Summarization, generation of ideas. I still think, for example, if you do a simple experiment with ChatGPT and ask it to write the first draft versus you give it your first draft and ask it to edit it, the editing is a much better version because it's your brain, your thinking, versus the having ChatGPT generate this. And then the last part is art innovation, right? So there is anything to do with language, communication is disrupted by this, coding is disrupted by this, and positively disrupted. I'm a technology optimist, and I'll tell you why, right? And then the third thing is arts and visual arts, like it's gaming design, fashion. All those can embrace AI now more positively. McKinsey did a study with the economic value of this, and they kind of predicted that it's around 4.4 trillion in value that it's generating with sales and marketing optimization and coding, as well as other customer operations in their top field. And in mine, I would say it's about the summarization and editing, which is extracting tons of digital data at much faster speed than a human can do with fewer error rate. And the second one is the software engineering. You don't need to spend days to debug things because ChatGPT can do, if you give it instructions, what you need it to do. And then the art industry surely needs a lot of regulation if you're going to take an artist's work and redo it in a different way. And then there are startups which are focused on that as well.
Yeah, the McKinsey study was fascinating. I mean, I think they were saying this can add 3 to 4 trillion
Yeah.
annual to GDP.
Yes.
I mean, that's like, if you want a way to crawl out of a hyperinflation, stagflation environment like the U.S. and the U.K. find themselves in, and likely Europe, that's one way to do it. On the art piece is funny too. So, I've heard this debate around, AI. First of all, obviously, there's going to be copyright issues here, right? Like, if you're
Yes.
training on creative work that you don't have a license for, that's going to be problematic, and I'm sure they're going to get something out of it. There'll be some new rule around that. But I heard this debate amongst artists around using generative AI as the new brush. And interestingly, many of them were saying, a layman who just tries to do this, like someone who's not a trained artist, the stuff they generate, it just looks like garbage, right? It's just like throwing paint on a wall or whatever. And I guess if you love Jackson Pollock, then that is art. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing is the folks who have successfully used AI to generate art and sold it, right? So it has some kind of market or collectible value. The real art or the artistic expression was the prompt itself. And so you can
Yeah.
almost think like it was the paintbrush, then the mouse cursor, now the
Then
AI prompt, right? And not anybody can do it. And it's still a form, like I can't sit in front of Photoshop and make anything look nice, but lots of other people. Anyway, so
I
I
think that's really foundational what you're saying. It's at one time search went from typing to voice, and now you're seeing that from the paintbrush to actual prompt. Like
yeah,
paintbrush to prompt is a reality, and the prompt is an expression of yourself. Like it might not look like art to you, but it might be an art to somebody else. And if you do Mid Journey and go try it out, it's there was this talk I was attending at Gray Area, and this person showed like a beach art where they have huge land art, and they described that to Chat GPT. It got it pretty close and even generated the code for that. So
hmm,
that was like, oh my god, the fakes and contribution and rewards back to the artist is a problem, but I don't think it's like throwing the baby out of the bathwater here.
yeah. Totally agree. So let's switch gears here. I know we're running low on time, and I want to make sure this is as
Okay.
valuable for our audience as possible. So, what's your advice for a total beginner in the field? How do people get started? And like, let's pretend like getting a master's in machine learning from Stanford is not one of the options. Like, what would be your advice to people getting started in this field?
So one thing I would just say is, even if you don't have a background, and I've worked actually with some PMs and hired PMs who didn't have backgrounds in AI, as long as they're customer obsessed and willing to learn on the job, and understand the PM metrics, as well as following through the customer journey and road mapping and exercise and all that, and working well with engineers and design, that's a good part. The attitude is all that matters, is what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
customer obsessed attitude. But in order to be smart in interviews and learn these things, the way I did that is, I was in big data and I transferred into AI by taking a lot of courses in Coursera, the Andrew Ng's first course, Gen AI introductory course. So and then again, I did the same thing. I distilled that complex course into a slide deck and presented it at product school with an engineer who I had created a chatbot with, and who was willing to demo the chatbot in one of the events, as well as talk about his, in another instance, talk about his thought process and how he develops models and give the technical aspect. So it's a collaboration plus doing your homework, and understanding the basic concepts of statistics and regression, because ultimately ML is about fitting a line to all the different data points, and which is the best possible line, right? So having a little bit concepts of that is helpful. I have a deck in slide art if people are interested, which is the summary of the Coursera, slide share if they're interested in that.
Oh,
Read
if you could
Medium.
post that to our
Oh,
professional network, that I would love to see that. I bet people on this chat would as
okay.
well.
I'm happy to share that. And then
Thank you.
there's Medium articles, papers that you can follow and continue along. Go to these conferences. What you're doing is great. You're here, the first step to learn about it, and so I think um, you'll be good. You can learn on your own time and just do it faster. In the weekends, take time off, just to get deeper into this. So, and then if you want to go deeper, you can do deep learning and join Kaggle competitions, do meetups, classes, and so on. Product school is also a good way if you want to transition into product management, and they usually invite guest speakers to come and talk through different topics.
I'll tell that those are all awesome decisions, and I'm excited to see that slide deck you made too. I'm sure it's valuable. The last thing I'll tack on, just from my own personal experience, who is just exceptionally good at sharing cutting edge knowledge, making it very easy to consume, is Google. Google
Yeah,
has always been such a massive contributor to many spaces, but especially this space. I mean, we wouldn't have Transformers if it weren't for them, right?
yeah,
Like they are just such an underrated resource. They have a framework called Vertex, Vertex,
No, okay.
which they've completely open sourced, I believe, but it's part of the Google Cloud platform now, and they'll give you a bunch of free credits to use it. And there's a million videos. Like if you're anywhere in your career starting off, they have a video where you can start and then move through to highly technical stuff, and you can do it right from their cloud instance. You don't have to run any hardware yourself. I mean, no one really talks about them outside of our community, but Google's a
No,
fantastic resource.
awesome. Yeah,
Okay,
no, that's
another
good.
one here. This might be the last one we have time for. There's like we could probably do this for 2 hours. I mean, um, Aarthi, how can AI enhance qualitative research aside from generating thoughtful questions? This is by Steve on our professional network.
Got it. So, and just to make sure, the qualitative research they're talking about is the PM qualitative research, where you're talking to people, you're getting non-quantitative data through surveys, through inferences. Okay, just
Good old
making sure.
customer development. Yep.
Yeah, okay, customer discovery. So I would answer this in two ways. There's an interpretation piece, and then there's a generation piece. Interpretation is understanding your customer problems and understanding insights from it. So for that, I would think about surveys or documentation you've had in the past, customers transcription of customer calls, and you're using NLP or natural language processing to extract insights or common themes and categories around it. And you almost create a word cloud of which ones are big and which ones are small, and categorizing these pain points into different categories. So it's a way, rather than having a human listen to 10 calls or 20 calls, how many ever they can do in a day, you're letting this AI do that. And then the second part is visualization from text. And you talked about it, like how do you find me a way to visualize clicking here or doing that? And then you're using a tool to help you draw your thought process out and use it as a thought partner to generate design. And then in terms of generation of this, you can obviously, while you're testing and having multiple prototypes, you can optimize for your particular goal. Is it about quick call to action? Is it about engagement time increase and conversion? And ask for alternate web prototypes from the AI systems. So you show it one and then ask it to generate the other one, optimizing for this click on this or improve the click on this, and see what the reaction is, right? And of course, you talked about the question generation. I would also talk about idea generation. Some of it might be useless because it doesn't have reasoning, but if you want to achieve a particular task and have the right prompts, maybe it'll give you a different way of doing about it.
Yeah, you might even ask it like, what
Yeah.
would be the top 3 best performing social media posts or emails or
Yeah.
whatever to reach a persona who's described by XYZ attributes, right? I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
exactly. Like describe this person or what are the things they do. No, I think persona generation and the journey is very good.
cool. That's awesome. Well, Aarthi, we're just running out of time here. I wanted to thank you so much. I know your time is very valuable, and I've so much enjoyed hearing your perspective here. And thank you for being one of the kind of founding kind of influential members of the Braintrust Professional Network. We launched this thing a month ago. It's the usage is off the charts. Where it's really come at a time when folks need and want upskilling and mentorship and career help, and you've been so valuable here. So thank you so much.
Thank Yeah.
And for everyone here that tuned in, thank you for doing that. We'll also post this to YouTube for folks who missed it. And then our next one will be on July 26th at 11 a.m. We'll talk to Diana Chen, a career coach and product leader from Lyft, Amazon, and eBay. So, Aarthi, any final advice or remarks or anything like that before we go?
Yeah, so one thing I would just say, there was an interesting question that I wanted to address if you have time. Like, somebody had asked about how do I go into AI in my current role. So there is 3 ways to do it. One is AI is going to go into every role. It's kind of like almost changing your tech stack. I would say, how can you bring that AI into your current role, whether you're like a 20-year veteran or you've been there for just 2 years? How can you think about disrupting the current role and bring in AI to that and work with a small team to show a proof of concept? And then, kind of, once you get the results from that, then you bring in other organizations. And so it's rather you're proving AI within your current confines as opposed to going out and seeking a new job. The second one is conduct a hackathon, bring in like researchers who are already doing this into your campus to talk about it and to say how they've used AI in their white papers and research. So you can come up with ideas in the organization. And the third one is obviously if you want to go out and search for a job, then you do meetups, you do talk to people, and then get it that way.
And post on the professional network and see what folks
Yeah,
say. Right? I
exactly.
mean, we've got, and it's what we built this for is to get folks like you to, give their perspectives. And what I love is we're just in the kind of AI's been around, or machine learning has been around for decades, right? But it's just now becoming this like kind of universally commercially viable thing that's affecting all fields, right? Not
Yeah.
just tech, law, and accounting, and all knowledge work. So, Aarthi, I have a feeling we're going to be asking you back here in probably like 3 or 4 months and give
Sounds
us
good.
an update. It
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you,
was
everybody.
wonderful to see
Bye.
you. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. That's it for us.